Well, my whole life is about change. Like, I've been on a very windy road. I remember finding out that I was pregnant 2 weeks before I turned 18 years old, and I was very scared. It wasn't something that I had planned on. I was thinking about college, and it's just kind of totally threw my track around. My first thoughts were shame, that I would bring shame to my family. I wasn't really set for abortion. I would probably say I was more like standing in the middle, like not knowing which direction to go, but like looking back at my life, everybody that was involved in my life at that time was pretty much leading me in the direction of keeping the child. I did have a friend in the family offer to pay for me to have an abortion, so I won't lie, it was a consideration. I specifically remember my dad, who I was expecting for him to completely flip out, but instead, like, he was very supportive, and I had talked to him and said, hey, you know, so-and-so offered to pay for me to have an abortion. What do you think about that? And my dad was, you know, just like, no, you know, the Bible talks against it. That's murder. I started going to this church with my dad called Blue Ridge Community Church. And so I had reached out to one of the women there, and she had directly referred me to the Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center. The first question that they always ask their clients is, you know, what do you plan to do with this pregnancy? And so I just told them the truth, you know. And then another question that they ask is, has anybody peer pressured you? No, I didn't have anybody in my life that really peer pressured me to have an abortion, but the offer was there. So I knew that was kind of like an easy way out. I had my first ultrasound, it was at a clinical. But what I remember about that first, the heartbeat, you know, that I could hear it. I could audibly hear the heartbeat. That just confirmed my decision to keep the child, because, you know, once you hear that sound, it's like, that's what God gave me. You know, it wasn't my plan. It wasn't something that I had planned, but that's something that God had planned for me in my life. Once I get an idea in my mind, I'm sticking to it. So I think it was like, I knew ahead of time, like, it wasn't gonna be easy. People would tell me, like, you know, why don't you consider adoption, you know? A lot of people really try to have children and can't, you know, that's a good option, and then you can finish school. And I'm like, nope, this is my child. Like, I just had it in my head. I'm like, I don't care if I'm up at 3 in the morning, like, I am going to take care of my child. You know, it just, for me, it was just like, this is what I'm gonna do, and I'm just sticking to it no matter how difficult it is. I went through a really tough relationship with a father. At one point, he told me that he loved his dogs more than the baby in my stomach, so that really was very painful. He had a drug addiction. So that was kind of what I was working against, is I felt like I didn't really have the support. Those were some of the toughest things that I think that I had to fight through with the pregnancy. But ultimately, I knew it was the right thing to do, because I knew that that's what God had planned for my life, whether that was a part of my plan or not, and also because it was a part of me, you know. You feel it. It's a bonding experience that you have when that baby's in the womb. I graduated June 10th, 2005. And my son was born July 30th, 2005. He basically went to school with me every day. Some of my first thoughts, I mean, I don't even know if I can even describe, like, the experience that you have when you see your child. You carry that child for 9 months, and it's like just such an exciting feeling. You know, it's almost like having a present wrapped before Christmas, like 9 months, and it's like finally you get to open it. So it's just such a, I can't even describe it. It's an amazing feeling to be a mother. I had another child with the father of my first baby, Caleb and Julian. Julian is my oldest. I had him when I was 18 and Caleb when I was 21. I really thought that things would work out with my husband at the time, but it didn't. We were together for 10 years. Some of those were on and off, but he struggled in every possible way. He's not a bad father, but he's just made some really bad choices, and Unfortunately, the boys have really suffered because of that. Shortly after my ex-husband and I ended our relationship, I met someone else. He's from Mexico, and he lived across the street, and so I'd asked him to kind of help me out with my Spanish class, and we just found out that we had a lot in common, so we started to date, and we got married. We have a little girl, so now we have a family consisting of 3 children. He learned to be a dad really quick, and I feel like definitely God's blessed me with all my children, but God always knew I wanted a little girl. So in some way, I feel like he kind of blessed me that time. Julian's like a typical 13-year-old, but he's very sensitive, and he's just a very good kid and has a big heart. Definitely a mama's boy, and he's very wise. I would say like wise beyond his years of age. Definitely, I feel like God blessed me for choosing life. Once I made my decision, I stuck with it. But before I walked through the doors of the Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center, I wasn't exactly 100% sure. I definitely think that there's a pretty good chance that I wouldn't have had, the happy ending story that I'm telling you right now, because I've talked to many people that have had abortions. I would never judge anybody. I know what it's like to walk through that path of not knowing what to do, but I've also been educated through the Blue Ridge Pregnancy Center about what people actually go through when they receive an abortion. And the person that I was talking to said, well, the reason that I asked you is because I had one myself, and what you're telling me is exactly the way it was for me. And I just wonder, what if, and I hate having to live that way. So it just really reinforced the idea that I'm just so thankful that I made that decision to keep my child, because it really brings tears to my eyes thinking like what life would have been like without him.